And that means even though you're remote, still structuring your day as if you were in office.
Good morning, you guys. Or afternoon.
Afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Would you like to start?
Yeah, today we are going to be touching on working remote and remote culture, since Josh and I obviously both work coffee shops or our house or, you know, wherever it is that we're traveling to.
And our entire company is remote. One thing that just immediately came to my mind on the working remote, which is a random thing, is I worked in an office for many years that had coffee that tasted like wet cardboard. But I drank it because I needed it to survive.
And it's free.
And it was free. But my gosh, having great coffee and being able to go to great coffee shops is like, and I know we've mentioned this in past videos, but it is so huge for me to have delicious coffee in the morning. So
it's super true. And I think one of the quick misconceptions about working remote is that oh, you get to do whatever you want, you get to work, you know, from wherever you want, which is true, but at the same time you have to be very structured. And especially if you're working with another remote team, your time needs to be so structured and in sync with what they're doing, so you guys can make sure you guys are on the same page. And it also depends on the types of projects you're working on.
Absolutely.
But a lot of times it's good to be in sync with whatever time zone they're in, or whatever project you're working on, because otherwise miscommunications can happen and things can fall to the wayside, and you can kind of get distracted if you don't have your time and your day organized.
Yeah, because when you're working remote and your team is remote, you have to over communicate. When you're in an office and you're sitting right next to the person, it's so easy to be like, oh, hey, what do you guys think about this? But when you're working remote, freedom is a big draw for that, right? So they might be eating lunch, they might have decided to do something, but they're still gonna get all their work done. So you need to make sure you're communicating ahead of time, saying, hey, let's jump on at this time, or hey, let's go ahead and sync up at this time. Does it work for you? Or if it doesn't, reschedule on a better time. And a lot of that is impromptu, but you need to give them a heads up, because if they're working remote too, they also have that freedom to move around and be not at their desk every second of the day like you are in an office.
And let's say that you're new, or you have a company, or you just started being remote. Something that really helps me, and I know a lot of companies use Slack, especially in the tech industry, but what I used to do when I was at a company, then we would just go remote once a day, but I would literally in Slack put a little snippet of all the stuff that I was supposed to be doing and where I was at. So at the beginning of the day, I'd be like, I'm working on this is in progress, this is in progress, this hasn't been started, or this hasn't been started, because you have your list of issues or your tasks that you're supposed to do. And then at the end of the day, I would say, this has been completed, this has been completed, this has been started, or this has not been completed. You know, things like that, just to give them an idea of what you did throughout the day. It may sound silly, or you're micromanaging yourself, but you kind of have to.
You really do.
People are giving you that opportunity and freedom to be remote and not have to come in. So you do need to communicate what it is that you're doing, even though you're like, oh, my work speaks for itself. But sometimes it doesn't. You know, if you're working on something really hard and you end up Googling or trying to figure something out for half the day, they have to know that.
For sure.
Otherwise, they're going to think you did nothing.
Yeah, that goes really back to the whole over communicating thing. That is so important. Keeping everybody in sync. It's harder to stay in sync when you all are remote, even though there's a ton of benefits to it, but you definitely have to stay on top of the game.
All right, you guys. So those are a couple things about communicating and working remote and being a remote culture. So Josh and I are actually going to go in there and get some work done quick.
Because when you work remote, it's not a vacation. You actually have to work.
100%. So let's do it. Dime.
All right, so I would say the next thing when you're working remote, and we've talked about this a lot, is you have to be so diligent about structuring your own personal time. When you start working remote, you're gonna find that days slip away from you easily because you went and did your laundry, you cleaned your kitchen, you took 2 hours for lunch. When there's nobody there watching you, you might let yourself slack off. And what happens is
Go down YouTube black hole.
Yeah, go down to YouTube, but yeah, seriously. And what happens is in the early days, you might let yourself slack off. What happens is you start getting behind in your work and it starts looking bad for you and it looks like you're not performing. And so you need to be very structured with your time and making sure you are executing your time well. And that means even though you're remote, still structuring your day as if you were in office. From 9 to 12, I'm gonna work on these things. Then I'm gonna take a lunch break. And then from 1 to 5, I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna eat dinner. And if you work in the evenings, go ahead and structure that time too. But I really recommend blocking the time you're working and blocking the time that you're not. If you're in your working period and you're like, oh, you know, I need to do my laundry, push it off until you have that free time. Push it off till after 5. You have to keep yourself very structured and routine or your days will get away from you.
Josh and I usually set up like a very specific day to do our laundry, and we do it during our lunch. I mean, obviously sometimes it takes longer, but it's scheduled, if that makes sense. And don't feel like overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this, I'm doing all these different things. Like it takes time to get used to it and to fall into that habit and that routine. But once you do, you'll feel so much better, and you almost take more pride in the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
I feel much better when I'm in a routine. I'm a routine person though. I love being scheduled. And some people do, some people don't. But if you are trying to do the remote thing or freelance thing, it's something you just kind of have to get into.
Get used to it, embrace it. It's gonna help you stay sane. It's gonna help you protect your off time and your work time. Because also if it's not structured, your whole day is just gonna be consumed by your work. But if you structure it, then it'll allow you to actually value the time that you have working and value the time that you're not working. Because just because you work remote doesn't mean you have to work all day, every day.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
All right, you guys, we hope you liked this working remote video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up.
If you have any other working remote tips, please let us know in the comments.
Yeah, or questions for us about it. We've been doing this for a while now. So yeah, feel free to hit us with some questions in the comments. And of course, you guys, please subscribe to our channel below, and we hope you all have an amazing day.
See y'all later.